Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vicki Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. This podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And this podcast is all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing, and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. I am your host, and today I have a special guest that I'm going to introduce in just a moment. But before I do, I would love to ask you to do me a solid. And that means leave a comment on this episode. Remember to like, subscribe, and share out. The only way we get all of these amazing guests to have the reach that they want to have is by actually having you do your part and share, subscribe, like. All right, you know the drill. You know what to do. So now let's get started. So now, before I bring this lovely lady out, Krista Bannon, I actually, I kind of met her in a group that I'm in for podcasters. And if I'm remembering right, it was the podcast group. And she has an amazing gift that she shares with the world. And so I'm really excited to get to know her a little bit better right along with you guys and explore a little bit of how she got started on this gift because it's really cool. So without further ado, here comes Miss Krista Bannon. Let me get her to the stage. There we are. Hey.
Hello. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. So much good energy there, Vicki. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, what I want you to do, if you don't mind, is I want to explore your story, but let's start with you tell them what it is that you do now.
So I am a home energetics guide, mentor. That is where my heart is. It is about helping people set their homes up in ways that support them in their life, support their visions for their future, and enhance their life with uplifting energy. So I can go into more detail, but that's the overview of what I do and how I serve my clients.
All right, wonderful. So I want to start with let's go way back to when Krista was a little girl. What did you aspire to be back then?
When I was little, I wanted to be a fashion designer. I
Ooh.
have always loved fashion. I'm very now not so fashionable, maybe, but I was always that unique little one who wore whatever she wanted and heels around. And I took sewing all through high school and designed my own grad dress and the whole thing. So I was very much in the fashion and design world. And then when I went away to college, I changed gears just a little bit to fashion business, more of like the business side of fashion. So I did stay in that industry, but very much in the creative realm of expressing myself through fashion.
Well, I love fashion as well, and I will say one of the things that I can be kind of quirky with some of it because one of the things that I like is to be just a touch different. Um, I don't, z- and I will be honest, there are times that just because of wherever I'm at, or maybe what's clean in my closet, I'm a little bit more just normal, but I prefer to do things that are just a little bit different. And I don't know, I'm a second born, so the kind of like the middle child. So I
Mm,
think maybe it was, growing up, you had to do a little bit different stuff to get the attention, so maybe that's where it comes from. So why, when
that's
you were
interesting.
switching gears just a little bit, why did you go toward the business side of things?
So I've always really wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew with fashion, I wanted to do my own thing. It was very
Mhm.
much that was the path. Was I was a trailblazer, and I unfortunately got it in my head that I wasn't a good enough artist. Like I couldn't draw
Ah,
good enough. I'm going to say that in air quotes for those of you who are just listening. But I kind of shrunk myself a little bit, when I was young and impressionable and didn't think I was good enough. So I switched gears, and it was a beautiful alignment because I really love the branding of fashion. And I learned so much about my own. Now I can brand my own business. Now I can create my own website. So I learned so much in that. But it was a bit of a disservice to myself to not let that dream fully manifest. But I was able to, continue with fashion and move forward with that. But I actually met my soon-to-be husband in college in this beautiful program that we were in. So, it all worked out. It all worked
yeah. Well, I guess it was
itself
meant to
out,
be,
like it
right?
always does. Yeah, yeah,
Wonderful,
exactly.
wonderful. Well, I feel you when you talk about how you didn't feel like you were good enough with that, because I have played with art my whole life, and drawing and painting and doing crafts and things like that. And I got to a certain place that I felt like this work that I was seeing from other people was way beyond what I felt I could do. And I spent so much time in the comparison game that I couldn't, I just, it was like I kind of held myself back from doing that, because if I couldn't make it look just right, I didn't want to do it. And then, as I discovered that about myself, I realized that there were other places in my life that I was doing the same thing. If I couldn't be this
Hmm.
good at it, then don't even want to do it. And I think that's a trap I know I fell into. And I don't know about you or any of our listeners, but as a very easy trap, that comparison game that we get into. And so I imagine with some of the work and everything that you do, that you kind of help people, even though it's your home and all that stuff, you're kind of helping them to pull outside of themselves and get out of that comparison kind of thing. Am I understanding what you do correctly?
Yeah, I was actually having a conversation with someone today about what I do because it isn't
Hmm.
something that is done a lot. It's a little
Right.
bit different, and I
That's
love
why
that
I
you
was so
say,
drawn to you, was because I'm
yeah,
like, that's a unique thing. Let me talk to her.
totally.
Yeah.
It's so different, right? And I'm really grateful for that, but then that also leaves me in a position as an entrepreneur where I don't really have a guide or like someone to look at. I don't have someone to compare myself to, which is nice, but it's also
Mhm.
challenging, right? For me to try to learn all of this on my own. But yeah, when it comes to my clients and stuff, it's really our home is so much more than just four walls and decor and paint choices and furniture. It's really a space that holds us. So when it comes to the external and how our emotions and our comparisons or our self-worth and stuff manifests, a lot of that stuff can show up in our home. So like you said, it was a trap that you were caught in, and myself included in that. But you can actually see some of that energy reflected in your home. And so I'm able to help people notice where in their life maybe they're feeling stuck, maybe they're not having a lot of clarity. So, what can we do to work within your home and find clarity? And remove those blockages, those energetic blockages. It's really quite deep.
Mhm.
It's not just, like I said, the four walls that you live in. It
Right.
goes a lot deeper than that.
So I just have a question for you, because I've studied a little bit of feng shui, over the years.
Mhm.
And so it's a little bit of feng shui with a twist, right?
Totally. Totally.
Okay. Okay.
I love feng shui. I practice it in our home. And I either in a past life or in this lifetime will, become a consultant of some sort and be able, like, that's I think where this is coming from in a way too. Like
Mhm.
I'm just very connected to it. But yeah, it's feng shui with a twist. It's more of the energetics as opposed, like I feel feng shui has quite rigid rules, and I'm
Yes,
not
yes.
much of a
I get my
rule
compass
follower.
out when I'm putting my
Yeah,
furniture up.
I know. I know. And sometimes it can be a little bit boxy, right? Like you can feel like
Mhm.
you have to stay. And then sometimes with feng shui, what I found in myself is that I can get into these fear programs of like, oh my gosh, I've put that there. Clearly our house is going to burn down because this and
Yeah.
this. And it's like, okay,
Yeah,
whoa, right?
because then
Like,
I find myself going into all the little extra things that it says, "Well, if you can't put the headboard here, then you gotta have a mirror over here, and you gotta do this
I
over
know,
there," and it's like, "Ugh, I gotta have a crystal hang," it's like
I
there's so many things that you do if because let's face it, I know you are aware of this, and a lot of people may be, but if the rule is that you're like, if, let's say in your bedroom, that your headboard has to be facing the north, well, hell, that might be a closet, that
know.
might be a window that you can't block, or your air vent may be there. So it's not always a cut and dry. This is how you have to do it. So when you're working with someone, and I'm really curious about this. So do you have to be in their physical home, or you can do it on Zoom where they can walk you around and see, or how do you do that?
So, because I come at this from more of an energetic standpoint, I don't
Mhm.
even really have to see what's going on. Of
Okay.
course, I love when people send me photos and stuff like that. But it's more and good practice for me to connect a little bit deeper to my ability to be intuitive. And I would honestly say there's almost this level of like, space holder for people to like I said, it's more than just the home. So it's a space, I'm a space holder for people to talk about what's going on in their home,
Mhm.
emotionally as much as
Okay.
physically. So one of my offerings is a 5-day immersive with me. So for 5 days, we have, day one is this, day two is this, etc. And we will go through um, the intention the person wants to work on, the vision for their life. Okay, so that'd be day one. So that's where we start as an intention setting process. And then we move into where are you feeling stuck? And then where in your home can you feel that energy? Where can we clear some things, clear some clutter, do a deep clean, set up a sacred altar? There's those sorts of things that would then follow after that day one of intention. So it would be so lovely for me to do in person, but I also have been to people's homes and I find it incredibly draining energetically to be
Mhm.
in a space for that amount of time. Now that's on me to work on my boundaries and my
Mhm.
protection, they say, and stuff like that. So I'm working on that. But yeah, it's something I do remote, and it's me honing my psychic abilities, my intuitive abilities to connect with people. But really, truly, because of the depth of this work, it's more than just their stuff and their physical environment. It goes deeper.
Right, right. I can see that. And I have the same thing with the energy stuff when I'm doing my hypnosis with clients. There, I'll do a cleanse and a protection prayer before I start and everything. And then there have been times that I worked with someone that the energy was just like I was so depleted afterwards. It's like, oh my gosh. And so one of my coaches one time told me she puts a bowl of salt water on the floor by her feet. And she said she doesn't put her feet in there, but it's like it kind of absorbs some of that energy so she doesn't have as hard a time with it. So I thought
Mhm.
I would suggest that to you. And,
Thank
if
you.
that may be something that can help. And she swears that actually draws that negative energy, and sometimes it's not that it's a negative energy, it's just a lot of
A
energy,
lot. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'll be honest, one time I used to think that when you get off of one of those calls, sometimes you can be just overly excited too, to where you can't sleep and everything. And so I thought, well, that was okay. And then one of my friends said, no, 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 that's still their energy. You've got to
Yeah.
displace and get back to you and not them. And so I've started putting, the bowl of water. Sometimes I remember, sometimes I don't. But then I do some cleansing and something afterwards, even if it's a really good feeling energy, just to make sure that I'm only holding on to theirs. So it's
Mhm.
amazing because I do mine, virtual too. I have had in-person clients, but even people that are local to me want to do it on Zoom just because of traffic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you go back to when you graduated and you've got this degree and everything, how did you kind of discover that this was one of your gifts? Where did that gift show up?
This is such an interesting and kind of convoluted story, to be honest with you. I
Oh,
don't
I
know
love
where this gift.
convoluted
Yeah.
stories.
I don't know where this gift came from. It dropped into my lap from a bunch of different synchronicities and little nuggets from the universe. You know how that happens, right? So
Mhm.
I graduated from college in 2012. So that was many years ago now. And since then, I was in the fashion industry for a while. Then I went to like a really corporate job, which was soul sucking and hard. And then I had some really
You
big
want to be
life
an
things go
entrepreneur?
on. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's a whole different game. I had a whole bunch of life things happen and I decided, you know what? I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit. I started doing my own thing. I got out of the job and moved into entrepreneurship, and I'm a yoga instructor, so I've always had that in my back pocket of like a gift that I can share. I've done other little things along the way, little creative projects, but really this came from, like I said, these interesting synchronicities. I started listening to some clutter clearing podcasts and some feng shui podcasts. And then oddly, I got offered a job to clean cabins at this local resort. And I thought, oh, sounds good. I love cleaning. I will say, I know maybe that's weird, but I super love cleaning.
That
And
is very
I live
weird.
with, I know, I'm a weird person. I know. Um, I live with 2 small children. So my toddler is almost 3, and my baby's just turned 1. My baby just turned 1. And so I live in a home that's never fully clean. I can clean and clean and clean and clean and clean and never be clean. So
I
when I got
remember
this
those
job, I
days.
was like, oh, I can clean somewhere and leave it clean and it will stay clean until I have to do it again next week. So I would go to these cleaning shifts and I would just, listen to these clutter clearing podcasts and these feng shui podcasts. And the bugs started, like swirling around in my brain. It was like, oh, okay, there's some energy behind this. I would even notice some shifts that I would go home from, I was exhausted. There must have been some energetic things happening that would just draw it out of me, and then I would have to go home and rest. And like you were saying, the salt water, I don't do that, but what a great idea to just cleanse after.
Mhm.
And so anyways, I just started to see the pattern of this relationship between our stuff, our home, and our energy, and it just kind of came about. And yeah, in a very very convoluted, weird, random way. And I think that's how our soul works with our gifts and our work from our heart center. It's not very linear and it doesn't always make a lot of sense. So I'm kind of
Mhm.
still in the phase of like, this is interesting. I'm going to go with it. I really love it and people love it and it's needed. So here I am.
Yeah. Well, there was a question that came to my mind, but it kind of went right out. So give me a second.
Sorry. Yeah. I
It's
was
not your
blabbing
fault.
on.
It's not your fault at all, believe me. Um, so let me think. What was that question? I don't know. We'll keep going, and I'm sure I'll remember. Hopefully, while
It'll
we're
pop
still on
back
the
in.
podcast. Oh, I remember
Uh,
what it was. So when you get into someone's home, is it the person's energy or the energy from the things?
I would say a combination of both.
Okay.
I am like I've always been a very sensitive person to people's energy, so I can pick up on that. But I've noticed in people's homes, and I do know just from an energetic standpoint, like our items hold energy.
Mhm.
So I heard a story once where someone had this most beautiful piece of artwork on their wall, and it was just stunning. But it just was kind of like an energy leak in their home. They just didn't, wasn't resonating. And the feng shui consultant asked, well, where did you get it? Where what was going on the day that you got it? And the couple realized that they actually purchased this after a big fight. And it was this big, giant piece of artwork that was in the middle of their home, a very centerpiece. So it was almost like they were living that fight over and over and over
Oh,
again
wow. Yeah.
subconsciously. And that really kind of hit me in the head. It's like, oh, wow. A piece of artwork can hold the story of when it was purchased. So that's the depth that I feel into. So yes, I believe that people's energy, of course, we're very energetic, emotional beings, but it's the stuff and the circumstances in which they were brought into the home. Maybe you have something. I was doing another podcast where the lady had a mirror that her ex-boyfriend bought her in her bedroom. And she was like, I don't know why I had that, because it was just a constant reminder of his energy. It's like, that's got to go.
Mhm.
Let's
Yeah,
get rid of it.
I've gotten rid of jewelry that, an ex gave me just because it was like, not only was it a constant reminder, but it felt like that had some of their energy. And the reason that
Totally.
I was thinking of asking you that, I have a purpose for this. Not too long ago, we had a friend of the family that passed away. And then, so one of the things that, and one of my sisters was in charge of helping her, after she passed, it was her job to go in and either give these things to certain people, some went to her kids, and some of it was going to be given to Goodwill, whatever. So she was a dear friend. So we went, my daughter and I went to go to her house, and we got a few things. We got some plants and some little odds and ends and stuff. And there was some photos that were in a box. And my daughter pulled out this picture, and it was this big oval, very old picture of this man that was standing there. And really, really, really old pictures, they never smile. They look mean as
Mm.
hell. And my daughter said, "This is the coolest thing. I'm going to take it." I said, "No, no, 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 no. We are not taking that man into our house. I feel this right here. He is not going with us." And then, but nothing else that we took ever had a different feel to it, because we've got a lot of her things, that she cherished. And it was like, I didn't want to let them go to Goodwill or anything,
Mhm.
because they were some of her cherished things and I wanted to care for them. But that picture of that man, it was like, I just knew that we were going to be bringing some kind of energy back that didn't would not be good. So
Yeah.
do you find that not only do people have the energy of maybe what they were fighting when they got it or whatever, but does it bring energy from a time that it was made, or does it bring energy from the people that had it? I don't know. So, but it would be that it has that energy on its own, right?
I would assume so. I mean, that's an interesting story because yeah, I can almost the way you're describing it, I can feel that
Yeah.
energy. Like it's almost I don't want to say dark in like a super negative way, but there's a darkness to those
Yeah,
old
it felt
photos.
dark.
And I
It
can
felt dark.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I could feel that just even you saying that. But yeah, I do think so. I'll tell you a story about a pair of pants I recently bought. So an
Okay.
item that came into our home. I have my love for fashion. I found this amazing designer, local designer who works with organic fabrics, very beautiful, etc. And anyways, after a variety of synchronicities, I received the call to get these most cool pair of pants. And she said to me, it's going to be interesting what you feel like when you wear them. And I sometimes don't think we realize that someone has made the clothing that we bought from Old Navy or Walmart or wherever. Someone has made that, whether it was, a machine, someone designed it. There's always this energy exchange, right? And so once I put these pants on, I was like, I can feel what she's talking about. There's an energy because she, with her heart wide open, sewed them with love, crafted the pattern with love. There was a huge energetic input from her that I could feel when I wore them. And that's something really cool that she's able to infuse into her. That's one of her gifts, which is really
Oh,
cool.
wow.
But when
Yeah.
you Yeah, and so when you're speaking of, other people and maybe where it was created or how it was made, I 100% would think that there's energy attached to that. Another little story is we have my Isa Mumu, so my great grandma, paint. She was a beautiful artist. She used to paint, and I have a painting of hers in our bedroom. And at first, I really didn't want much to do with the old things. I wasn't quite sure what energy they had, but I'm accepting this gift from her, in hopes that I can heal a little bit of our ancestral line and just pull in the love that was it. It's a picture of two roses. It's very beautiful. And so I'm looking at it through that lens. So there's also a process of like setting your intention with these items.
Mhm.
It may have had interesting energy. And I'll tell you, as soon as we brought that picture into our home, it fell out of the closet and the picture frame broke. So obviously the picture frame was not meant to be in our
Yeah.
home. So I got rid of the picture frame, but I kept the picture in it. And I'm working with it with intention of like, okay, we're going to heal some ancestral things here. We're going to invite back the beauty from our family and from her art and so on. So yeah, I would have to agree. Energy from making it, energy from receiving it, it's all energy.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have, sounds like you have a big healing thing that you have to do with your family.
I do, yeah. We've got some things to heal for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Well, I really think most families do to some degree, some more than others. I've had quite a few people on my podcast because I love telling the stories of how they started. And most of the time, and that's why I was asking you some of the questions I was, because most of the time there's some kind of something that happens that actually makes them, I'm going this way, and suddenly something happens and then they're going that way. And they find out that even though that felt like they were making a wrong turn, that's not what they really wanted to do, ended up being the best thing that ever happened to them. And
Mhm.
so, can you, when you're thinking of that, can you find something in your life that helped to change the trajectory to where you're now in this spiritual place? Because it sounds very spiritual and not so much of just a fashion place.
Mhm. So there's two big events that have happened, since graduating and then, all the way up to here. I actually got married when I was really young. So I was 23 and I got married, and I was then 25 or 26 and getting a divorce because that didn't work out. And I very much was repeating patterns from my family in that marriage. And so with that stepping stone of my life, I went through a dark night of the soul, finding myself and trying to figure out what the heck I was doing. At this point, I felt like I had to start over. Even though I was 26, I had lots of time. I still do. But that was a really pivotal moment where I was like, I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to keep repeating these patterns. Um, you know, right alongside that, I was starting my spiritual journey. I had just become a yoga teacher. I was starting to understand and read different books that were connecting me to different, mindsets and different
Mhm.
awarenesses. My consciousness was starting to raise with each step of that journey. But what also happened was having children. And so I gave birth to our first daughter in 2021, me and my partner. And that, I mean, just cracks your heart open. It's just to have a child and to bring a child into the world. It's the most beautiful and special experience, but it's also incredibly hard. And my
Mhm.
heart was cracked open, and I was healing our families. And I'm still working on that. And I was dealing with my own, shadow coming up and being really trying to do better, but not quite knowing how to do better. It was just a real healing experience. So after that, we ended up moving closer to my hometown so we could be closer to my family. And at first, we didn't know quite why we did that. We were like, what did we do? We should have stayed where we were. Let's keep a distance. What are we doing here? And as things have unraveled, we had another baby out here. So of course, heart cracked wide open again. There's always that meaning and that depth to these experiences. We don't know why they're happening, but here we
Yeah,
are.
yeah,
But yeah, it was very much of a jagged journey, a zigzagging journey of who am I, what am I doing, what am I here for, and then those beautiful girls that came into the world, I think, are just little mirrors for us that are teaching us and showing us, our path.
yeah.
And yeah, so but once we moved out to I'm in Northern Ontario, and once we moved out here, there was a shift. There was a big shift mentally. It took us some time, both of us. Me and my partner have had long conversations about this. It took us some time to get through the wondering and the questioning and not trusting our decision. And then here we are now. We're both entrepreneurs. We have this beautiful family. We are creating a beautiful life for ourselves. But that was because of all of the hard stuff. And I'm sure
Right.
there's going to be more down the road. This is life.
Yeah, well, I've heard it said many, many times, we have to go through those hardships to get strong enough to handle the next major climb that we've made. So if you're an
Beautiful.
entrepreneur, and you have aspirations of reaching this pivotal place, there's so many growth spots that have to happen. And that's when everything's going like all crazy and everything. Because
Yep.
I know for myself, if who I wanted to be when I was, 5 years ago, if I had suddenly been teleported into this place, I wouldn't have been able to handle it because there's
Yeah.
so much that you have to juggle and you have to know to make things come together and work and get in touch with the right people and having the right coach and all those different
Hmm.
things. And so I know 5 years ago, I was not ready for where I'm at today. And
Yeah.
so I know I'm at this moment, I'm not ready where I'm going to be in 5 years. I've got growth places that I need to get to, right? And
Yeah.
so one of the things that I have definitely adopted in my life is when something's going wrong, I say that in air quotes. It's not so much that it's going wrong as it is helping me to gather the strength and the knowledge that I need for the next um, venture that I'm going to be on. And I think if we can adopt the idea that things are happening for us to help us to get somewhere, we stop looking at things as being bad. And I think it's one of my favorite people is Jim Rohn. Do you know who Jim Rohn is?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Love
yeah.
him.
And one of the things that he used to say all the time was, "Don't wish things were easier. Wish you were better."
Mm,
And I love that. And
love it.
so there are so many times I will tell myself, "Okay, I'm getting better. I'm getting better."
That's so good. Jim Rohn, I love him. I really do. Yeah, that's one
It's
of my
such
favorite quotes from him too.
Yes, he's such an amazing storyteller. So I love someone
Yes,
who can tell you a story and get you just wrapped up in it, and then you
totally.
get some kind of amazing new knowledge from it that you didn't even anticipate. So I love him. There's so
Mm.
many different people that I follow. So I'm thinking about the people that I follow and all, you said that you were listening to podcasts and things like that. That's one of the things that helped you move the needle to what you wanted to do, right? So, who were
Mhm.
the podcasts that you listen to now?
So I listen to a hilarious variety of different podcasts. Jim Rohn
Mhm.
is definitely up there. He's on a podcast that I have saved in my phone for frequent flyer use. Um, I love all of his work, but I listen to a feng shui podcast called House Therapy with Amanda Gibby Peters. I listen to that one sometimes. Again, with the feng shui, I try to kind of dabble in it, but just not get too wrapped up.
Mhm.
I also listen to a really beautiful parenting podcast called The Simplicity Diaries. That's where I got the inspiration to like clutter, clear, and declutter for our children, which was a really
Okay.
beautiful
Oh,
experience.
yeah.
Um, Yeah, a few business podcasts. My business mentor has her own podcast called Soul Activation. She's a very, in tune, spiritually connected business mentor, which I vibe with so beautifully. And yeah, I they range from, aliens and extraterrestrials and channeling to parenting to Jim Rohn to,
Yeah,
feng
yeah,
shui.
yeah. Got a
Whatever I'm
very
feeling.
eclectic taste, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I know for me, like when I'm getting ready in the morning, I'm either listening to an audiobook or I'm listening to a podcast or I'm listening to somebody on YouTube. And,
Mhm.
there are a lot of people on YouTube that I follow. I don't get to their podcast that often, but I do follow them. And so I'm really always looking for something energetically and
Mhm.
emotionally, that's going to feed my soul and feed me.
Yeah.
And so, like, one of my friends, her thing is she watches the news all the time, and it's like, oh,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
just even saying that just kind of depletes my energy. Um,
Totally.
yeah, yeah. And this one person, she and I don't think she'd ever be listening to, so hopefully she won't. I won't say her name. She won't know. So anyway, but she's a very anxious, stressed person. And
Mhm.
she's always saying, I'm so stressed. And I said, but I've already told you, stop watching the news. If you can't
Yeah.
make any changes to it and it doesn't help you to know, why do you feel this compulsion to watch it? I don't know, but I have to watch the
Mhm.
news. And I'm thinking there are so many people in life, I think, that do things without even having a clue why they're doing them, and they don't really know what to do. And that's one of the things I help people with sometimes with my coaching and with my hypnosis. But it sounds like that what you do helps with that too. So let's say
Mhm.
this person comes to you and they're just exceptionally stressed, and they say, well, I do watch the news. Then I'm thinking, I'll let you tell, but I'm thinking you would also ask them about what's going on in their home and in their life, and then you could tell them things to physically do in the space to help deplete or reduce the amount of anxiety, even if they continue to watch the news. Am I
Mhm.
understanding that right?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say stop watching the news
Yeah,
right
I know.
alongside
Well,
with
if
you.
it's this lady, she ain't gonna do it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't we don't even have a TV that works. We don't watch the news. We don't even really watch, Netflix or streaming either. I'm a huge YouTube fan as well. And I am I practice consuming that feels really good and that lifts
Mhm.
me up. So I hear you on that for sure. But yeah, there are so many people that I know personally that have a very chaotic home, so much so that they won't let me inside their home. It's
Mm,
too much, or there's, I don't know, a mess or something is going on. And you can tell on the external with their energy that that's the way that their home is. They're very scattered. Their brain is full of clutter. They're anxious. They're overwhelmed. They're too busy to clean. The list goes on. And so, a big part of what I share with people is also simplifying. And
mhm,
like that can go so deep. You can simplify your life, you can simplify your home, your schedule, your kids' schedule. I don't subscribe to being busy anymore. I used to wear that badge really proudly. Oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. And I do love what I do. And I love having a to do list that I get to check off, but it's not a big one. And it's one that I choose because I just don't want to live in that stress zone. But if you also looked around at our house, you would notice that there's not a lot of stuff. There's not a lot of clutter. There's not a lot of things that just get left undone. And that's a reflection of what's happening in my brain. And then it can be reflected in my home. I play that game. So when it
mhm,
comes to people who are stressed out, I would say, we have to figure out a way in your home to feel grounded. Your home is your sanctuary. It's your safe space. And if it
Mm-hmm.
can't be that for you, where are
Yeah.
you able to let go and breathe and be present, right? And just let go of the stresses of the day. That's what our home is for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's that big giant hug at the end of the day.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I concur with that because for me, it's like if I'm out doing things and everything, when I walk into my home, it's like, oh,
I
yeah.
know. What a beautiful feeling.
Yeah.
S- Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So, how do you tackle the decluttering for the kids? Because I remember my kids are adults, so but I remember the stuff. It was like more stuff and more stuff, and then holidays come and they always get more stuff, and then um, I used to even sometimes they would get so much stuff for Christmas that I would take some of their old stuff and I'd put it in garbage bags and I'd put it away so that I could pull it out and surprise them with these things that were theirs to start with. But for the people who have young children, what is some advice that you can give them that might help them to maybe declutter their space, and maybe it teaches them, I assume, to not be so constricted with things as they get older too, right?
Mhm. Yeah, children and clutter is a really big topic, to be honest, and it's something I'm passionate about from a more personal standpoint. Um, it's not that I wouldn't share that in my work, but I'm definitely not going to come at that from an expert perspective because I'm not a parenting expert. I mean, I am a parent, so maybe I am now,
You are, you
but
are.
I will proudly wear that badge.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so we we have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and yeah, Christmas was just a few months ago, and it was like we're still picking up the pieces of the stuff that we got. So this year I really laid down the law with gift giving. My our baby is born in January. My partner's birthday is in January. There's Christmas. It's just excessive gift
Mhm,
giving at that point. So I just said, you know what, we're opening up a bank account for the girls for when they're older and they want to travel or education. There's a great place to put all that money you would have spent on toys. Like, I'm not going to deprive people of their gift giving because I do think that's a beautiful experience too, but just not in excess. But I think for people who have a lot of stuff in their homes for their children, the most important thing to note is that your child is terribly overwhelmed with all of that stuff. So when it
yeah,
comes to us as adults, if you go into a room that's cluttered, you're going to feel it. There's a response in your body. It's like, whoa, there's so much energy going on. Now, your child's probably going to feel that 10 times the intensity. So,
mhm,
we have to be really super mindful of how much stuff we fill up around them. One thing I did was I simplified and minimized the stuff that we have in my daughter's room upstairs. We have a toy room downstairs that also stays organized and clean and everything. But upstairs in her room, it's minimal so that when she is resting and sleeping and having her quiet time, it's not loud and noisy energetically. So I
mhm,
would say simplify the bedroom as much as you can, make it a sleeping, peaceful place, like for sleep, I should say.
mhm.
But yeah, the
And I
the
would assume,
biggest
like,
thing
no
though,
TV, right?
no, I would definitely not put a TV in there.
Yeah.
I would not, but that's just personal. Like I had a TV in my room growing up and I turned out kind of okay. So
Well, semi-normal.
yeah, kind of. That's a bit of a stretch, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Depends on who you're comparing me to.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, the parenting and the clutter is a huge topic, but honestly, it's something that I'm so happy and grateful to be able to help people with because as a parent, I see the change in my daughter, especially at that toddler age of access, like too
Mhm,
much stuff. I see a change from that to simplifying. She's so beautifully plays with her things now in this imaginative deep play. She's just there with it. And she could be
mhm,
her little child self. And so that's been a really beautiful outcome of simplifying, but it did take some time. The other thing is it's also a mindset. So do you subscribe? This is what I would say to someone in a heart-centered and gentle way? Do you subscribe to, materialism and having everything that the TV and the commercials and the ads tell us to have? Or are you okay with a little less? And not from a lack mentality, but from an abundance mentality,
Mhm.
where you can really love and enjoy and be present with all of the things that you have. We live right on the edge of a forest. Our property is covered in trees and hiking trails. That is our play as well. We go outside. We enjoy the sunshine. We have dogs. We go play with the dogs. We do things that isn't just in the house with a bunch of toys. So
Right.
it's value based too, right? So it
Mhm.
can go really deep. Yeah, I could talk about that for an hour, I'm sure. So
Well, maybe we can do it again and you can talk about that.
yeah,
Um,
that's a good
but
idea.
I know one of the things that I've noticed over the years with my kids as they were growing up and all was that a lot of times I would buy them these amazing gifts and they would play with something that was simple, you know.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, it's like a lot of times I think we're listening to and they are too, at what's being advertised. This is the greatest toy for Christmas this year.
Mhm.
And it probably wasn't until they said that. And then everybody wants it. And so then it
Yeah.
is the greatest toy. But there's so many times, like one instance I remember with my son one time, he had all kinds of toys, but he was sitting in the driveway and we had this gravel spot on our driveway and he had a brick, he had a hammer, he had some stones, and then he had a piece of wood. And he would take and he'd break some of the little pieces of gravel on the stone, and then he would do it on the wood. And then he was just seeing how everything was breaking apart differently. And it was like, and he sat there and did that for an hour, just breaking up these. Of course, my husband at the time was saying, he's tearing up my gravel. It's okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
But,
Let
you
them.
know yeah, but it was like one of those things, it's like, wow, there's all these things here, and then this is what he's playing with. And,
Mhm.
actually with my granddaughter, I did, like this program, and I can't even remember what it was called, but it was where, um, with a group of kids, you went outside and your toys were getting the leaves and looking at them and seeing the veins on them, or getting a stick and using some water and some dirt and painting. It was all of those things. And that was so
Mm.
much fun. And she loved it tremendously. And,
Yeah.
so those kinds of things. And I know with one of the things my daughter, when she was young, she loved to do was she liked having all the little dress up things. So every time I would go somewhere, like to a yard sale or anything, I would see if there were any old Halloween costumes and I would buy some. So we had this container and she would get these little costumes out. And she had the best time just trying on these little costumes
Mhm.
and, parading around and letting you see her. She'd dance and everything, but she loved that more than any of the other toys that she had. And so I think a lot of times we as parents, especially these days, or well, I can't really speak to that, but anyway, we think the bigger the better, the more expensive the better, that
Mhm.
kind of thing. When a lot of times it's the simplest little things that really get them lit up and they're having fun,
Totally.
and and they can use their imagination.
That's
That's the thing. A
huge.
lot of the
Yeah.
toys take all the imagination away.
It's so true. It's funny that you said that about your daughter. My daughter does the same thing. We
Really?
were given a big bag of hand-me-down clothes that were like size 8, so quite a bit too big for her. And she pulled out, like I pulled out maybe 4 or 5 little t-shirts and dresses and whatever, and those are her her dress up dresses, and every day she puts every single one on. She parades around the house. She's so proud of her
Mhm.
outfit and look at my dress up. And the other day we were outside on our deck. We have this wooden, it's rotting out now. We have to get it replaced. But, anyways, they were scooping out wood, putting the wood in a metal bowl, stirring it up with a stick, adding water to it, and making muffins outside. So they said muffins, right? And so, again, We have
Yeah.
the toys in the basement, we have the things in the and it's just they just need simplicity and their imagination, and it's so beautiful to watch that. As a parent, that's just our dream come true for them.
Yeah, yeah. And I liken it to like if I read a book, my imagination creates amazing pictures in that book. And then they
Mhm.
make a movie out of it. And I say, well, that doesn't look anything like my book, you
My
know.
imagination. Yeah.
The people look different, you know. And so it's amazing when it's left to us to imagine. We can imagine amazing things, but I
Mhm.
can't watch a movie and well, I can, but it's difficult. If I watch the
Mhm.
movie first and then I read the book, I see those people in there.
Yeah.
My imagination
Yeah.
can't doesn't create something different. It's weird.
Mhm. Yeah. But I mean, that would probably be similar for a child who has,
Mhm.
this bowl of sticks and mud and water, stirring up her muffins to then going and watching it on the screen, or having some sort of toy that makes the muffin for her, and like it just takes
Yeah,
that away. So it takes that experience away. So
yeah, yeah,
simplifying is, yeah, number one
yeah.
tip for sure.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, we're getting at the close to the end of our time, but it has been such a great pleasure to have you on here. And I just want to share with everybody that I have asked Krista to maybe come in and speak as an expert to my group on Facebook, the Make Lasting Change. And so I'm
Mm.
super excited for us to schedule something for that because I think this is something that would benefit almost everybody, I know it would benefit me. So I'm looking forward to, having you in the group and having a relationship with you, as we go, not just the podcast, because I think I
Yeah.
love your energy. Um, and I love what you stand for, because, over the years, people have gotten where they're trying to keep up with the Joneses kind of thing. So
Mhm.
if
Mm.
Betty Joe next door comes home with this new car, then the next they have to come home with a new car and they're competing. And that's why some of these houses have become like these such a huge house. And I'm thinking, I don't understand two people living in a house that's built for 25 people. And all that
Mhm.
means is that you can get a farther away from each other. And I don't understand the premise of that. And I'm not knocking anybody that has one of those mansions. That's what you want. That's great. I like
Mhm.
luxury and I want things to be nice, but I'm not into the bigger is the better kind of thing,
Mhm.
That's just me,
Yeah.
right?
That's the mentality and the mindset side of things too, is that what is truly our value? What do we
Mhm.
want for our life? What is our dream? What reality are we creating? The reality that I'm creating is simple, is beautiful, is in touch, connected to nature, is grounded. And that's the energy I want to send out. I want to
Mhm.
have around me in my home. I want to share with my daughters. I want to share with the people that I love. I want that to be what we stand for, because that's the reality I want to live in. And so if
Yeah.
you're going to live in a reality where everything's big and oversized, and that maybe that's what you want, and that's okay, right? Like you said, we're not going to knock anybody for what they want, but it really comes down to what you value in your life and what you want to create. People don't understand how powerful we are. I know I was in a pre-interview for a podcast about, and we were talking about manifesting. And there's sometimes a misconception, about manifesting. It's just all the luxury things or the big fancy car that we need and this and that. It's not that. It's that we
Mhm.
get to create our life in every single moment. And when we surround ourselves with things that remind us of this ability to create our reality, to really pull our dreams out of the ethers and manifest them into this, like, what a beautiful thing that we can do. Right. And
Yes.
I think that's a big part of why I share what I share. And the way that I go about my business is very heart centered, in that way that I want to empower people that they get to create this life. We're
Mhm.
creating our reality in every moment. And the more people know that, the better energy our world would be infused with, really. People
Yes.
would be so much more mindful and conscious of what they're putting
Mhm.
out.
Yeah, there's a book, I think it's Vishenlikiani, I can't remember how to say his last name, but anyway, um, he wrote a book that it's about rules, which he calls bullshit rules in life, and that
I love
we have adopted the things that people have told us, or the popular things, or the things that we should want or we should do, and expectations of people. And, we adopt all of that as we're growing up.
that.
And so one of the things, and I wish I could remember the name of the book, it's over here somewhere. But anyway, um, he talks about how to go about the process of making sure that the things that you want are actually the things you want, just not the things that people have told you you're supposed to want because you're at this stage in your life or whatever. And it's like me,
Mhm.
I want to make a lot of money. I really do. But that is so I can have the things that I want. It doesn't mean that I want the McMansion or anything like that, but I want to have what I want, and I want it to be nice. But most of the reason is that means I've helped a tremendous amount of people to
Mhm.
have that, and I can be the best philanthropist that I could be by sharing it out with others.
Mhm.
And to me, that's what financial um, dreams are about. It's not just
Mhm.
let me go buy that private plane, let me go do all these things. And those are great, but not everybody needs a private plane. For
Mhm.
that matter, just make friends with someone who has one. But the thing to me is that we don't all have to have that thing just because somebody on social media has shown us that this was what they got with their millions. um,
Mhm.
we can still feel very connected with ourselves if we figure out the energetically, like you talk about, what really lights us up, what makes us feel good. Because sometimes I've gone into homes that were just gorgeous, but that they feel like a place you'd be want to be more than 20, 30 minutes. No. And so I think
Mhm.
that that's important to recognize that the like you were talking about the energy of the people and their stuff and everything, is that the more stuff you put around you, the more energy that's coming from that, and you just need to make sure that it's the energy that works with you personally.
Yeah, and that's something I talk with my clients about is that
Mhm.
when you're setting up your home and whether you already have a home or this is, your new home that you're moving into sort of thing, it's very much from a value based and intentional place. Like, what do you want for your life? What is your vision for your future? How can we set your space up that's so that it supports that? So that it supports your vision, and that when someone walks into your home, that they feel like they're embraced with good energy. One of the biggest compliments I think I've received is people coming over to our house and just saying how good it feels in
Mhm.
here. And to be honest, we rent this house out in the country. So this is not my home. I don't own it. I didn't buy it. I didn't paint. This is someone else's home that we've infused with our energy by living here and by decorating and by placing and by using feng shui and applying the energetics. So that is my message for people when I'm talking to them about the energetics is I want you to feel that warm embrace by your home. But when other people, like you said, come over, I want them to feel it. Like, how beautiful is that if we can ripple that energy out as well?
Yes, perfect. All right, so I think that's kind of got us to the end. Is there anything more that you want to add um, from here, or do you feel like you're complete?
I feel so good. That was beautiful. Thank you. Thank
All
you so
right.
much.
My pleasure. And so and this kind of ties in with everything we've just said at the end, but my closing remarks to everybody is the best way to predict the future is to create it. What are you creating? And with that,
Beautiful.
I will say thank you, everyone, for joining us. And remember to do us a solid and make a comment on this, and actually like, subscribe, and share this out to your friends, because there's not a soul alive that doesn't need to hear this. So help us out. All right. So I will see you next time. Mwah.